So I am self-taught with the painting, and I've come from working in publishing, like writing and editing and that kind of industry and graphic design. And then when I had kids, which was 18 years ago, I kind of started painting just before I had my first child. I think, so I was always into art at school, and I knew that I wanted to do something like that. But it was a bit different back in my day in terms of going to uni. It was almost kind of more of a linear thing, like you had to go to uni, then you had to get a gallery. So I didn't go to uni, obviously, to do fine art, but I knew it needed to be something creative. And so I tried all these, like with the writing and graphic design and that kind of thing. And it was just never quite enough. So I was always kind of doing things on the side. And I think that a couple of months just before my first son was born, I took like a bit of an earlier maternity leave. So I had a couple of months just purely to myself. And that allowed me to just do as much painting as I wanted for no real outcome, which turned out to be a really good start. Yeah, so I've just haven't stopped really since then. Well, so recently it's become a little bit more about the landscape. So in the lead up, it's mostly been abstract. So yeah, it's always a tricky one to describe paintings. But yeah, I guess they're kind of like the layers are nice and thin, and I would say they're bright. Yeah. I think so with abstract, I was just always a little bit more fascinated by the idea of working in that abstract way. I like that unplanned kind of see what happens approach. And then I think recently, with lockdown, I kind of got more into the landscape, probably because I was denied access to it. And it's always just been a really big influence in terms of even with the abstract work. So it was more of a matter of like letting myself focus on that. And it just gradually kind of became a little bit more literal. I've now got my studio at home, thanks to lockdown. I couldn't get to the studio, so as soon as I could, I moved home and studio into one place. So I've got lots of room at home for that. And I like to actually just get up early and have a coffee and get straight in there, actually. Yeah, take lots of breaks, but I like to start early. Well, for the last body of work that I've just finished, the inspiration was actually the landscape, like down in Point Lonsdale, where the show is about. It's no real one movement or anything. It's just kind of people like Joanna Logue. I really like people that do abstract landscape, really. Yeah, with that kind of lens. Yeah, my favourite is Adam Payette. He actually uses oils, but just I love everything about his work, and I love that he uses the landscape as a kind of as a container, I guess, for his abstraction and his playful work. I get inspiration, I guess, from Instagram. Like there's so many beautiful artists that I follow. But when it comes to my own work, I like to just really like shut Instagram down. Mostly because I know that you can kind of absorb. If you're looking at everything, it just creeps into your own work, which is normal and natural, but I kind of think to be able to create a full body of work that feels unique to me, I probably need to just have a bit of space from all of that. And I just remember having chats with a painter friend of mine about that idea of like, how do you find your own thing without looking at other people's work, and without being too academic about it. And so I spent probably a lot of time in lockdown, and also in the lead up to making all these new works, and watching the changes in my own work happen as I kind of become closer to sort of landscape. Just really thinking about that and about how I can help other people with that kind of finding what's truly theirs, and I think that's quite an inspiring process. Well, I'm a kid of the 80s, so I kind of like the pastel pinks and, you know, blues together and that kind of thing. Green's always been a favourite, and I think with the last collection, I've kind of moved towards oranges and even purples, which I've kind of steered clear of for most of my life. So I guess it kind of evolves and changes, but yeah. Pretty colours are good.
Yeah. How come you still steered clear of purple for so long?
It's just always been like a gut reaction to, you know, aubergines. Not my thing, except for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's quite ironic. Yeah, I like Matisse and golden. I started out with the golden fluid. And then I moved into the heavier body. So, and yeah, the Matisse heavy structure as well. I quite like I do thin them down a lot, but I just like that creamy kind of thick paint sort of feel to start with. Acrylics, I think, are just really convenient. Like, I've played with oils and love them. And I most likely like gravitate towards those down the track when I can. But I like the immediacy of acrylics, easy to clean up, and yeah, the quick drying is great. And embroidery, it's kind of one of those things where I guess I've always done sort of textile things here and there, like knitting, crochet, and I also did that kind of thing at school. So it's just always been in the background, and it's just a really relaxing thing to do. So yeah, whenever I'd have a bit of time at home, I would do that kind of stuff. And then I started seeing it as another way to just create art that was all in the same vein, just that different medium. And it's almost like the slowest possible version of painting. Well, the good quality paint is a must. I don't have any like particular supplies that I have to have. Like, I've got a particular type of brush that I like, but it's not always the most expensive one. It's just whatever feels good. I like the ones that are kind of a bit bouncy and firm. But yeah, I think good paints, good brushes. I like linen.
Linen canvas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did, the pandemic definitely did, because I was in a shared studio. It was really nice to kind of have other painters to chat with, and yeah, have access to seeing what other people were up to, and that kind of environment was really conducive. So that was a bit of a shift, coming home and changing from like bigger works down to smaller ones again. So yeah, I guess those transitions always feel a bit tricky, but then, you know, looking back on them, they're okay, you know, like, you know, it's always better when you're through through those changes. But yeah, I guess there's natural sort of waves of times where I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. Yeah, just sort of work through them. Yeah, so I've got the acrylic painting workshop for beginners, the abstract one. That's up and ready to go, and it's like a self-paced one, based on the workshops I used to run back in the day when we could all meet in a room. I've got like a membership in the works as well, so that's to follow on for people that want to keep painting and exploring, like, you know, finding their style, that kind of thing. And I've got my show in 3 weeks' time, which is exciting. It's 20 new paintings. So it's in Point Lonsdale at a beautiful farm retreat called The Lawn. They have exhibitions there every 6 weeks. So it's starting on the 26th of May, and that's the preview date, and it'll run till the 3rd of July. But all the works will be available through my website as well. So Actually, I brought my favourite ones. So that one is probably my favourite, and I think it's one of the last ones. So of 20 works, it's like right at the end, I think maybe the last one or two can tend to just be like pop out really quickly because you've sort of had all this time to create all the other works. And yeah, so those are the ones that I find a little bit more special. So they've come so easily. I don't really get creative block. I probably get the opposite of like, I need more time to be creative. And so sometimes that will create a similar problem where if I haven't had enough time of being regularly in the painting, it can take a while to get back into it. So I guess, you know, I've always been good with having kids and stuff at being able to fit in. If I've got half an hour, I'll do something really tiny, and it doesn't even have to be, you know, for a product or anything. It's just like getting in that zone. So yeah, just doing it regularly and not expecting too much is helpful. I think in terms of being learning how to paint and getting started is to just give yourself heaps of time and try not to worry so much as you go, and to also like focus on what comes naturally. Like I think a lot of people fight that and think they should be doing it a certain way. But yeah, I think if it's coming easily and it's enjoyable, then that's where you should let that lead you. They're creative, but they're probably, I wouldn't call them arty. My oldest is a musician, so you know, they used to paint with me, but I think they hit about sort of 11, 12, and they're like, no more. But their paintings were really good. Like they're actually very inspiring. No, it's always positive. Like unless of course things are like, you know, that unknown period can be so painful. Of course that has a negative impact on everything. But you know, thankfully those times are not very often, and they don't last for that long. So yeah, I think it's just what keeps me going. And whenever anything else in my life is really tricky, I've always been able to use that as a source of, you know, strength, I guess. And the embroidery is great for that too, because it kind of, you know, you need your eyes and your hands and everything else. It just is like meditating. Yeah, that's a really good question. I've started thinking about that because, yeah, I've really enjoyed having the structure of the landscape. I don't think I'll be going closer to representational landscape, like pure landscape, although you can never say never. The more you say you're not going to do it, you can often be exactly what you go and do. But I think there's still parts of like the actual process of painting that are hard to put into a genre like that inspire me, like just the actual physicality of painting. So there's things in the back of my mind that I can't quite describe that I know I'm going to follow up on afterwards. But yeah, most likely it'll still be landscape related. When I was writing the story of this work for my website and for the exhibition, I'm in an artist group, a membership where we can chat about this kind of stuff and help each other out with it. But I was just kind of describing out loud to them like what it means to me to be in the landscape. And I guess it was like, it really just dawned on me that I kind of use, say if I'm walking through a landscape, I guess the abstraction comes from not really like focusing on, you know, the real like individual plants, or, you know, there's the overall thing, but it's almost like when you go into that sort of half dream state where you just kind of absorb it around the edges. Yeah, which I guess is probably how I think about abstraction as well. So, and that to me is more interesting than sort of getting like a photographic representation of the space. So my website is just my name, so belindamarshall.com. Easy to remember. And the social media is much the same, only I've got my Belinda J Marshall for Instagram.